All right, we're live. What's up, everyone? You see the title. You see who's joining me. You know exactly what we're talking about today, the New York Mets, and I'm joined, of course, by my good friend Gabe Hirsch, who is a blogger for Metsmerize, the popular Mets blog. Gabe, what's going on, man?
Nothing much, Bryce. Just not really enjoying the stretch run too much, but we'll get into that. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. And I figured because, this is just a disastrous time. It's now a 6-game losing streak, I believe. Or is it 5? It's 5. 6 of their last 7. They've yet to they have not scored 3 or more, or I guess more than 4 runs. What a disaster here. And this is, I wouldn't say a long time coming, but kind of indicative of where this season has been going in terms of the resilience that this Mets team has shown. They have yet to come back in a game in which they were trailing in the 8th inning or later. What do you make of this lack of clutchness going on with the Mets this year?
Yeah, that is almost unfathomable, right? I kind of look at the last 5 games, or want to look at the last 6 or 7, as not just a bad stretch, but kind of a microcosm of what we've been seeing from this Mets team for more than half the season. If you after their 43-21 start, which was best in all of baseball, they've been the 3rd worst team in the MLB, or the 4th worst team, and it's been consistent 78 games of play where they're on pace for, I believe, 66 wins. So, in terms of not coming back, it's strange. I think it's one of those statistical anomalies. Inevitably, they're going to have to come back. The other night, they had runners on 2nd and 3rd with 1 out against the Phillies, and both Jeff McNeil struck out, and then Francisco Alvarez struck out on 3 pitches that were nowhere close to the strike zone. Yeah. It was horrible. And last year, the whole identity of that 2024 team was how resilient they were, and how it seemed like half of their wins were come from behind wins in the playoffs. In that Philly series, I mean, they started against the Brewers. It's like every game that they won was a comeback. You just knew that come the 8th, 9th inning, the Mets were going to put their best at bats forward. And this year, it's been the exact opposite. People seem checked out for whatever reason. They can't. They do have walk-off wins, and I think they've got a good amount of them. But in terms of coming back from a deficit, it just hasn't been there yet, and it's frustrating. And honestly, there's nothing really too much to make out of it other than it's just, pretty unfathomable.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to start this with that because I think it's part of a larger trend here with the Mets. And I think it says a lot about the other things that we're going to be talking about. The idea that this team, for whatever reason, does not have that resilience, as you said, as we've discussed, off air here. But looking at the rotation, the various different players that have struggled at the plate and now are playing, it just for whatever reason. And the one thing, we talked about this a few weeks ago, Mark Vientos, how poorly he was playing. But from August 15th to now, he's raised his OPS by more than 100 points. That's the part that makes no sense to me. You get this level of production from a guy like Mark Vientos, but then you see a drop off from, let's say, a Francisco Alvarez since he returned from the out, or from a Francisco Lindor. Where does this offense need to come from? Who is the most important? I'd say who's the most important hitter in this lineup currently?
I think the name of the game for the Mets is consistency. They've had pockets of the season where the offenses looked really good. August was the best offensive month in team history, and they managed to go 11-17. But as you said, now the offense has been sputtering. Really, this whole Philly series in the last 2 games against the Reds, Francisco Lindor does not have a hit in his last 4 games. He's proven to be prone to these. Everyone goes through streaks in baseball. It's a streaky sport, streaky game. But Lindor has kind of remarkably shown that his ups and downs are quite extreme. I think that it has to start with Lindor. It's tough to pinpoint who the most important person in this offense is. But when your leadoff hitter is getting on base, you will score more runs. When your leadoff hitter is not getting on base, it's tough to get things going from the jump. Juan Soto has been fantastic. He is putting up arguably the best offensive season in New York Mets franchise history. He went 3 for 4 last night with a double, a home run, and a stolen base, and the Mets lost by 8 runs. So
Mr.
with Soto,
Mr. Low Leverage, huh?
well, look, you could
Him
say
and Judge
you
in
could
the
say
same
whatever.
boat.
You could say whatever about Soto. The man has 39 home runs. He's leading the league with 118 walks, and he's got 31 stolen bases out of nowhere. It is genuinely a ridiculous season. But look, Lindor hasn't been great. Pete hasn't been great. You said Vientos has been good, but at the end of the day, it's consistency. Just if you got 9 guys in the lineup, if you've got one day where 8 of them are hot, and then another day where one of them is hot. That's not a successful formula for winning
Yeah.
baseball. They got to find a middle ground where they've got 4 to 5 guys going all consistently. And with 16 games left, time is running out. But that's what they got to find, the consistency.
Yeah, and that's just the lineup. Like that's not even addressing the other issues that this team faces, and that's obviously with the pitching in there and whatever the hell they're going to do if they make the playoffs in a 3-game wild card series. Gabe, I just look at Sean Manaea, whose ERA is now up to almost 6. He has not gone more than 5 2/3 innings since he returned from injury this year and last year. Of course, we know what he was. Ate up a lot of innings, 180 plus innings. It has been quite the opposite this year with Sean Manaea. What do you make of his struggles, and like where else are they going to get solid pitching from? And I hold off on talking about the rookies. I want to get to them in a little bit. Where what do you make of the Manaeas, the Sengas, and the Clay Holmeses of the world?
Yeah, well, starting with Manaea, he's hurt. He's pitching with loose bodies in his elbow. As soon as the offseason is over, the season is over, he will almost certainly get surgeries to get a surgery to remove whatever is going on in that elbow, and hopefully it's nothing more major. But first and foremost, Sean Manaea is pitching hurt. We know he's hurt. His velo is down a little bit. Look, oddly enough, I mean the strikeout numbers have been there. He's not walking a ton of guys, but he's just leaving way too much out over the plate. He's getting crushed. He's giving up a lot of home runs. And it's difficult because Sean Manaea was the Mets' de facto ace down the stretch last year. And I was there in person. I witnessed him against the same Phillies team pretty much throw, 7 innings of 1-run baseball in a key NLDS game 3. Like Sean Manaea has shown in a Mets uniform what he's capable of, and this year it's just been the complete opposite of that. And it's difficult. I mean, I just think with 16 games left, they already announced he's going to make another start. Like, we could talk about Clay Holmes. Like, I just think that you can't give him the ball. You at least can't let him start, because the way he's been pitching, it's been like you're punting a game. And Manaea, after Mendoza pulled him aside in the dugout the other night, was able to throw 3 scoreless innings after giving up 4 in the first 2 innings. But like, the body language wasn't there. The fact that had to happen in the first place is kind of concerning. Like, I just think that if Manaea is not physically, mentally, or whatever able to take the mound, and he's not able to give us length, 5 innings was like, the fact that he was able to give us 5 innings was like, positive development. Like, I think that I don't feel comfortable giving him the ball in any of these last 16 games, which are all must-win games.
Now, 16 games left, as you said, 2-game lead in the wild card. How concerned are you that they're going to miss the playoffs?
I think my concern meter is the highest it's been all year. I was ready to clinch them after they won that first game against the Reds, but look, the Giants are hot. We do hold the very valuable tiebreaker over the Giants, so they effectively need to, be a game ahead of us in order to make the playoffs. But now the Reds, after winning 2 out of 3 against the Padres in San Diego, are right there. And the Reds have been pretty much a 500 team all year. But, looking at their schedule, they get a few games against the Pirates. They're going to Sacramento tomorrow night, and they've got a 3-game set against the A's, who are not a great team, but they could still win a game or 2. But look, it's baseball. You never know. I mean, they also play the Cubs and the Brewers. They play 4 against the Cubs, 3 against the Brewers to end the year. But it's like the Reds could sweep the Brewers, they could sweep the Cubs, and they could get swept by the Pirates. Baseball is just a strange sport. So I'm definitely a little bit more concerned about the Reds on the fact that we don't have the tiebreaker against them. They won 4 of 6 against us. But the Giants, I think, have the better team. The Logan Webb is a certified ace.
Yeah.
They are down a few of their key guys in the bullpen, and obviously they sold off at the deadline. But Willie Adames is getting hot. They've got Matt Chapman, they've got Devers. Like, I think the Giants have a bit more of that firepower that worries me. But at the end of the day, the Mets control their own destiny. And what I'm most worried about is that they continue to play like they have for the last 76 games and ultimately finish 500.
Yeah, and the Mets, one more game against the Phillies tonight. They got 3 against the Rangers, or 2 against the Rangers, 3 against the Rangers, and then 3 against the Padres. And then after that, it's not too tough. You get the Nationals, the Cubs, who've, depending on who you talk to, have not been the best team in the second half of the season. And you got the Marlins to finish it all off. Dude, the way I look at it is, obviously not a fan of the Mets. Like, that would be the most dejecting end of season performance. Not even just end of season. This is something I've discussed with my roommates. They're both Mets fans, and clearly their mood has been impacted by this. 31-46 since June 12th. Like, it's not been limited to a certain period of time. It hasn't been limited to a certain area of the team. It's all encompassing. And it's now 4 months or 3 months of baseball in which the Mets have been terrible. Like, what is out of all the things we've discussed, pitching, the hitting, like, what is the biggest reason for this Mets downfall here?
My take has been, when I talk to my friends about this, when I talk to people about this, my take has been an issue outside of what's been shown on the field. I think the team is lacking some sort of leadership, some sort of urgency. Francisco Lindor has been one of the best Mets in franchise history. He will get his jersey retired by the Mets. Same with Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo as well. But this team, when they were, in general, for the amount of talent that they had, that nucleus has not had a ton of success. And in 2023, on the heels of, an 101 win season in 2022, when we had, known veteran leaders in the clubhouse like Max Scherzer, we brought in Mark Canha, we had Eduardo Escobar, we had a lot of veteran presence in leadership, and Scherzer was really the guy that really made everything run. He's the ultimate leader and competitor, and has World Series history and has, winning experience. In 2023, when stuff started to fall off the rails, Scherzer was hurt. They ended up trading Scherzer. We had Verlander, traded Verlander. Tommy Pham, who ended up getting traded by the Mets at the deadline, was outspoken about the fact that he had never been in a locker room of people who worked less hard than the Mets. And everyone was like, oh, that's just Tommy Pham. Tommy Pham is the same guy who slapped Jock Peterson over a fantasy football dispute. And yeah, Tommy Pham's got his quirks, but, I'm thinking about it now, right? In 2024, it wasn't until JD Martinez came back off the injured list and Jose Iglesias came over that the Mets injected these leadership veteran presence from outside the organization to help turn things around. I mean, people, you look at any interview, I mean, the impact that Martinez and Iglesias had on the team was undeniable. And now in 2025, those guys are gone. Yeah. The de facto leaders of the locker room are back to Lindor, Alonso, and Nimmo. And it just seems like the team is objectively, even if the Mets win the next 16 games, they're going to have, finish below their Vegas win total. I mean, this is a team with an undeniable amount of talent. And whether they make the playoffs or not, they have failed preseason expectations. And I am worried that there is no true leader in that locker room that is able to get some sort of stability and turn the tides around, because quite frankly, the level of play that they've sustained, it makes sense for all the other teams that have been as bad as they've been. But it doesn't make sense for a team with the highest payroll that is coming off an NLCS appearance and added Juan Soto.
Yep. And you mentioned leadership, and obviously that all ties back to one person. That's Carlos Mendoza, who went to the, obviously a part of the Aaron Boone managing tree, which is not the best. It's not the best person you'd like to have as your mentor per se. but he's starting to sound like him too. Some of the things that he said in the past, we know we're better than this. We'll be fine. We've got to take it one day at a time. It's, three of the things that he said, he's kind of, recycling and reusing all this kind of stuff. What do you make of Carlos Mendoza's job with the Mets this year, and what is your reaction to these comments?
I think that Mendoza is like playing a bad game of poker, but he was like dealt a really bad hand of cards. Like I think that it's difficult. Like you can nitpick the decisions he's made. I mean, some that come to the top of my head, right? When Starling Marte about a month ago was thrown out at the plate as the game tying run when they had Tyrone Taylor in his 99th percentile, 93rd percentile.
Mauricio the other day.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, and his bullpen decision making, like it's easy to kind of look at those little moments and be like, wow, like Mendoza has directly cost us these games. But on the other hand, Mendoza, one thing he's been vocal about is it's tough to manage games with your starting pitchers providing the second least length in all of baseball. I mean, it's very difficult when basically going into a night that your starting pitcher is going to max out at 4 or 5 innings to manage the full game after that. Yep. And then in terms of the managerial decisions, like, I've been saying it for the better part of 2 months now. I'm not sure how or why Ryan Stanek is still employed by this organization. Ryan Helsley, at this point, the prospects that we gave up for him are just a sunk cost. He gave up another 2 runs last night. Like, we cannot continue letting Ryan Helsley take the mound and work out whatever yips or tipping that he has. Like at this point, you just got to cut the guy and move on and bring up someone else, because even if you think a guy in AAA isn't ready, they cannot possibly be worse than what we've seen from Ryan Helsley. So I'm empathetic to the fact that Mendoza has been dealt a really bad hand of cards. I mean, these guys are talented players outside of really outside of Diaz and Tyler Rogers, who has been really good since coming over from San Francisco. There's not a reliable arm in that bullpen. And we can talk about the rookie starting pitchers who have been good, but from those veteran guys that you're supposed to lean on, especially at the end of the year in Mania Holmes, Senga, who's now in Syracuse, there's been nothing there. So, it's tough. I mean, I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. Ron Darling suggested 2 nights ago that some of the bad fundies that were showing on the field should lead to a team meeting, and Mendoza kind of laughed it off and insinuated that there's been no such meeting. Maybe I don't know if those actually work, but at least from the public, it would be nice to know that there was they felt the same urgency that it feels like the fan base is feeling right now.
Something that I see as a Yankee fan, and obviously a lot of hate and frustration and criticism is directed towards Aaron Boone. From what I've seen from, talking to you and my friends, a lot of that hate and anger has not been directed at Carlos Mendoza. I feel like from what I've seen, this is New York. Like, you want to say something about Mets fans and Yankees fans, all from New York. These are New York fans. The same with the Jets and the Giants. Same types of media. We get it. At some point, don't you think that a lot of this is going to be thrown Carlos Mendoza's way, and that he might possibly be the scapegoat here for what's going on with the Mets? At what point do you believe he will get the blame for this? Is a better way to phrase this.
I think he's already starting to get some of the blame, and I think that if the team misses the playoffs or continues to spiral over these next 16 games, particularly if they miss the playoffs, that he's going to continue to get the blame. But at least what I've seen from online is that a lot of the blame is being deflected, being pushed towards David Stearns and the front office, because David Stearns, for as much as I respect the guy and I pretty much David's, I'm a huge fan, maybe the biggest David Stearns fan out there, but his trade deadline acquisitions, have been objective misses. I mean, Cedric Mullins has been abysmal. Cedric Mullins has been unplayable. He's also not worthy of a roster spot. He's been terrible defensively, and he can't hit anything. And Helsley's been horrible. Did Stearns expect that Mullins was going to immediately go into a terrible drought and that Helsley was going to all of a sudden, start tipping his pitches? Absolutely not. But he was the guy who is in charge of the player acquisition, and he's in charge of the guys who are on the team. Fans are already, for better or worse, emotionally enraged with Stearns because of seeing Nolan McLean's success, and the low hanging fruit is, why didn't you call him up 2 months earlier? And then now when Sproat and Tong come up and they look, not as good as McLean, but better than all the other starting pitching options we have, they ask the questions. And hindsight's always 2020. But I think that for the Mets, while Cashman definitely does get some shade from the Yankee perspective. I mean, Cashman's, won championships. He has the track record. He's done stuff for the franchise, and a lot of these guys he brought in, Bellinger, Fried, they've been, Grisham, they've been very good, serviceable assets for the Yankees. For the Mets, it's like the guys that you bring in, and then you look, there were. In the preseason, I mean, everyone was talking about the rotation and how shady it looked, and it worked out for the first 63 games, and it's completely backfired over the back half. So I kind of see. I don't think either is anywhere near. I think David Stearns has a lifetime contract with the Mets, and I think Carlos Mendoza is the Mets manager for the foreseeable future. They need stability. They can't keep alternating between managers every time they. Are below expectations. They greatly exceeded expectations in Mendoza's first year. I think his job is totally safe. But yeah, if the team misses the playoffs, I think the blame is going to be on everyone, including Mendoza.
So we got into those rookie pitchers for a little. You just mentioned them right there. Talked about Nolan McLean. You might be his biggest fan. I got to give you some credit. You did say that Nolan McLean was your second guy who's going to pitch in a wild card series. I think you might even say that he's number one at this point. He's got a massive game tonight, probably the biggest game that he's ever pitched in against the Phillies. Of course, every game, as you said, to your credit, is must win. But again, division rival we're now 10 games above the Mets in the NL East. McLean's got a good opportunity tonight, but we talked about McLean. But let's get into Tong and Sproat. What have you seen from both those guys? And, have they given you any sort of hope for the future for the Mets?
Yeah, I think definitely both. And yeah, I'll say I was wrong about McLean. He's not the Mets' second best option. He is far and away the Mets' best starting pitcher.
Yeah.
If they do make the playoffs, he's the game one starter. He doesn't pitch tonight. Peterson pitches tonight. He pitched the first game of the series against Philly, and the Mets lost 1-0.
I see that now. Yeah.
It was the worst start of his career, and he was only, he limited the damage to one run.
He's incredibly impressive. I watched that full game. I've not.
Yeah.
But keep going.
He's incredibly impressive in the Mets' number one pitcher. But anyways, yeah, Tong is, I think, definitely the rawest of the three. He, pretty much, kind of relies on like two pitches. He's got that fastball that he throws like 60% of the time, and then, he's got his curve. And in Cincinnati, in his most recent start, he struggled. He had never really given up homers in the minor leagues, and obviously it's a different game. He was playing in Great American Small Park, they call it, and he gave up 3 home runs, and it was all on the fastball, and so he had to adjust. He started mixing in some changeups. I think Tong is, out of the three of them, I would say I'm the least comfortable with him on the mound. He has great strikeout stuff. I think going down in the future, I think I have the utmost confidence that this guy is going to be a rotation staple for the Mets. But in the small sample that I've seen of both of them, especially what I saw from Sproat, took a no-hitter into the 6th inning in his MLB debut, struck out 7 guys. His off-speed stuff looked very impressive. He has a much more complete arsenal. He's older. I think he's a bit more developed. Granted, he had the least amount of success in the minors as the three of them, but I do, at least based off of one start, I think I feel a bit more comfortable with Sproat on the mound at this point. With that being said, I think that there's a strong argument that all three of them, if there's a 4-man playoff rotation, all three of them alongside Peterson should be the guys that are starting. And if it's a 3-man rotation, I think it's got to be 2 of them. It's got to be McLean and either Sproat or Tong, and then Peterson, or perhaps even all 3 of the rookies.
But here's the thing. But are you really going to pitch rookies in big spots like that? I'm playing devil's advocate. Not saying I disagree with you, but might the moment be too big for them?
There's nothing to lose to see if not. First of all, I don't think so. I think these guys are just legitimately talented. I think the moment has been too big for the veteran starting pitchers on the staff. Clay Holmes, since June 7th. And granted, Clay Holmes, for the contract he's being paid and for what was asked of him this year, has been an overall success. But he has exceeded 5 innings of work 3 times in his last 16 outings. That is less than 20% of the time he takes the ball, he is getting you 5 innings. In the playoffs, you could probably get away with 4 or 5 innings. But in these 4 or 5 innings, it's not like he's giving up no runs. He's giving up, 3, 2, 3, 4 runs. Like, I would much rather roll the dice with the young pitchers who all have better stuff and are sharper and a bit more fresh. Same with Manaea. I just don't think you can justify having him start a playoff game. Maybe, if one of the young guys, is only able to go 2, 3 innings for whatever reason, or you want to pull him early in the playoffs, like then you can piggyback Manaea or Holmes and deploy him that way. But I think you need the young guys on the roster, and it would be much more adverse to the young guys to have them come out of relief in a playoff environment, in a position that is kind of foreign to them, rather than just letting them start the game.
Yeah, I think there could be like a double message in doing that by putting them out there. Like it's on one hand showing that maybe they're not too excited, not necessarily excited, but maybe they're not too hopeful about this season, what could potentially bring. And then on the other hand, it would be like, all right, well, yeah, we're trying to get them as much. Maybe they want to start them, but again, on the other hand, you're building for the future. You want to give them this opportunity to shine. I think it's very fitting that Clay Holmes will find himself back in the bullpen after everything that I'm not going to say that I told you so, but you and plenty of other Mets fans were saying that. I think you also said this, that Clay Holmes would be a Cy Young candidate and that David Stearns would save his career by putting him into the rotation. I think I wouldn't say it was the worst experiment, but at the end of the day, this is Clay Holmes that we're all talking about. And this is something that Yankees have, of course, come to understand. But I guess we'll close it out here. At the trade deadline, the Mets were a half a game ahead of the Phillies in the NL East, and now they are 10 games behind. Like, I know we've talked about this, the epic collapse. What does that say to you about the Mets organization as a whole, that they've failed, in that sort of magnitude there?
I think it was, I think the simplest way to put it, it was a miscalculation of, I think basically it was a lot of like, at that time, waiting for Senga to return to form, waiting for Manaea to return to form, having confidence that Frankie Montas was going to return to form, thinking that Clay Holmes was going to continue to be serviceable. Like, I think that there was just a lot of waiting around to see, because it's not like Sean Manaea, it has been this perennial ace, but he's definitely pitching worse than the back of his baseball card. Same with, and then Senga was going through a rough patch too. Same with Montas. Like, there was just a lot of, I think, kind of belief, right? And also the price to acquire starting pitchers is very high. There was a lot of belief in the starting pitching staff, and they figured that if to hedge their bets on the starting pitching staff not improving, that they would go out and get the super bullpen. And then one of the key cogs of the super bullpen has, been tipping pitches. So sometimes it just happens. It's just like, it was an unfortunate, just like series of events, and none of the guys they brought in have produced. And the consistency just hasn't been there. And the Phillies have the key difference between the Mets and the Phillies is that the Phillies, even without Zach Wheeler, have an extremely strong pitching staff. 5.73 innings pitched on average per start. They're basically averaging a quality start. It's the most in baseball. If your starting pitchers can give you 6 good innings every single night, and you have Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Trey Turner in your lineup, like that's a winning success. I think the Mets, the difference between the Mets and the Yankees is length in the starting rotation. It all starts from there, and it makes the bullpen problems much easier when your starting pitchers get you 2/3 of the way there.
Yeah, I think I just never foresaw this, and I'm sure you are on the same page as me. But dude, it's a pleasure. We do this bi-weekly. The next time you'll be on, Uh, there's going to be a lot of things. I mean, listen, there's a lot of question marks going forward the next 16 games. By the time we speak in 2 weeks, a lot of those questions will be answered, and hopefully we'll be talking about a potential Mets playoff run and not what the hell happened. But Gabe, really appreciate it. You're about to go play a round of golf. Go load today, and for your sake, go Mets. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Bryce. I appreciate it. Yeah, hopefully the next time we hop on this pod, the playoff picture will be a bit clearer in the Mets' favor.
Yeah, there you have it. See you, Gabe. We'll talk soon, man.